All right, we'll call the meeting to order, beginning with the invocation and the pledge. Almighty God, send down upon those who hold office in this city the spirit of wisdom, compassion, and justice. Grant that with steadfast purpose we may faithfully serve our community, seeking the common good, protecting the vulnerable, and promoting the well-being and harmony of all who dwell here. Amen. Amen. Pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, all members are present and accounted for. First up is ceremonies and announcements. Today we have 3 proclamations, beginning with Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and a holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and world. Trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil, lower heating and cooling costs, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless wood products. Trees in our city increase property values and beautify our community. Trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Randy Westland, Mayor of the City of Post Falls, Idaho, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2026 as Arbor Day in Post Falls, and urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Next up is Military Child Month. Whereas April is the month of the military child, an opportunity to recognize military children for their resilient spirits, personal sacrifices, strong character and courage, and whereas military children are part of the strength of our nation as they support and encourage their service members with a fierce patriotic spirit, and whereas these children are a source of pride for the great state of Idaho and to us all, and it is only fitting that we take time to recognize their contributions, and whereas military children continue to make significant contributions to family, community, and their nation as they endure prolonged and repeated absences of one or both parents, and whereas a month-long salute will recognize that military children serve to, and citizens of Idaho will be afforded the opportunity to don the color purple every Friday of April in support of these children. Now, therefore, I, Randy Westland, Mayor of the City of Post Falls, Idaho, do hereby proclaim April 26 to be the month of the military child. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the great seal of the City of Post Falls, Idaho, on this 7th day of April in the year of our Lord 2026.
Can we take a picture with you?
Yes, let's do that in just a moment. Let me do the third proclamation, and then we can do some photos, National Fallen Firefighters Memorial. Whereas the United States Congress and President of the United States have designated the day of the annual National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Service as a day to honor firefighters and emergency services personnel who have sacrificed their lives to save others by lowering the American flag on all federal buildings to half-staff. And whereas an average of 80 firefighters courageously make the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty each year, and whereas firefighters and emergency services personnel play an essential role in the protection of lives and property in our local community. And whereas it is of great importance that we increase and support the efforts to reduce deaths, injuries, and property losses from fire. And whereas on June 29, 2025, Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Battalion Chief Frank J. Harwood and Coeur d'Alene Fire Department Battalion Chief John G. Morrison lost their lives in the line of duty. Now, therefore, I, Randy Westland, Mayor of the City of Post Falls, do hereby proclaim that Post Falls observes National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Day on May 3rd, 2026, in recognition of the patriotic service and dedicated efforts of our fire and emergency services personnel by lowering American flags on all buildings to half-staff. I encourage residents and businesses to pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes by participating in Light the Night for Fallen Firefighters from April 26 to May 3rd by lighting, glowing, or shining red lights on their landmarks, businesses, firehouses, and homes. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the great seal of the City of Post Falls, Idaho, on this 21st day of April, the year of our Lord, 2026. All right, now we can do some brief photos, and we'll continue.
I thought they were going to do it in front of the...
Want me to stand up?
Flags behind them. Thank you.
No problem.
Perfect.
Oh.
Yes, we will. I'm master. I'm TikTok. Hi, how are you? Good to see you too. You look like you're just out there all by yourself. Thank you guys so much for all you do.
All right, moving on. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
There are none tonight, sir.
Declarations of conflict, ex parte contacts, and site visits. Seeing none. Move on to please present the consent calendar.
Item A is minutes from the April 7th, 2026 City Council meeting, and item B is payables April 8th through April 22nd, 2026.
I think this is the shortest one we've had in a long time. Any questions on that?
I move to approve the shortest ever consent calendar I've had in 15 years on the council.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Luca?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Mosby?
Aye.
Plou?
Aye.
Ziegler?
Aye.
Stiglater?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. On to public hearings. Tonight we have one City of Post Falls 2025 Transportation Master Plan. We'll open the public hearing.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Robert Paulus, City Engineer. So tonight, for this public hearing, you were provided in your council packet a copy of the 2025 Transportation Master Plan. In it, it included appendices that document the travel demand modeling, the capacity analysis reports, project cost data, and open house sign-in and comments. Staff is requesting tonight that upon your consideration of the materials presented to you, public testimony received, and your deliberation, that you approve the 2025 Transportation Master Plan for adoption and implementation. Our Transportation Master Plan is part of our comprehensive plan. Development of the Transportation Master Plan works with adopted goals and policies from the comprehensive plan. The desired results of a Transportation Master Plan is to provide a safe, efficient, and reliable transportation system by identifying and addressing anticipated transportation needs for our planning horizon, in this case through 2045. Implementation of the Transportation Master Plan allows staff to provide you, the City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the general public with guidance on determining impacts of proposed land use actions, whether that be annexations, zone changes, special use permits, subdivisions, or site plan reviews. It gives us the opportunity to take a look at a project and say, does it correspond with the land use assumptions that we have in the master plan? What are the impacts of that going to be if it gets adopted? Is an additional traffic study needed for that project that's being proposed? And how do we see projects being implemented in that area that may impact a project's development? The 2025 Transportation Master Plan is built on 2023 traffic data, and it would replace our current 2017 Transportation Master Plan. The 2025 model is built off the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization's regional model, and it allows a more refined look at the local transportation system while coordinating with the regional model and needs. Traffic count data was collected from over 80 intersections in the city of Post Falls to allow for calibration between the local and the regional model. The 2025 model takes into consideration the best available information of long-range and ongoing planning efforts by the Idaho Transportation Department, such as the Rathdrum Prairie Area Transportation Study and the I-90 widening, whether that be the current work that's ongoing now between Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene, or the future anticipated work through the city of Post Falls itself. The development of the 2025 master plan included coordination with the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Post Falls Highway District, the Idaho Transportation Department, Emergency Services, the Post Falls School District. We incorporated a technical advisory group. We held stakeholder interviews. There were 2 public open houses held. We had public outreach at Post Falls Days in 2025, and there were 2 council workshops with you. The 2023 traffic data reflects a transportation system today that is in relatively good operating conditions. There are some areas of concern in the current modeling, but those areas are currently being mitigated, whether that's through projects that are already under construction or projects that are in the planning stages for development and construction within the next 2 years. Amongst those would be the Pleasant View and State Highway 53 interchange, which ITD is working on, the I-9041 interchange, which is nearing completion, and then traffic signals, which we are anticipating in the next couple of years at Idaho and 15th, Spokane and 15th, and some lane access restrictions at Idaho and 12th, amongst other plans. The master plan identifies projects needed to address anticipated growth. It's divided into 3 sections: short-term projects, which are in the next 0 to 5 years, midterm projects, which are identified for 5 to 10 years out, and then long-term projects, which are anticipated as being needed between now and the year 2045. We also have an implementation plan where we take what the model shows us, these are the projects that are needed, and try to look at it a little bit more from a realistic, taking in some of the political and development aspects that are out there as to how do we make these plans work with how we see growth actually occurring. Where are some of those funds going to be coming from? And allowing the flexibility too as the Rathdrum Prairie Area Transportation Plan comes to fruition, does that impact some of the things that we have projected as well? In 2023, the city hired JUB engineers to conduct the analysis of our city's transportation network, identify projects that were needed, and address growth between now and the year 2045. Tonight, we have with us representatives from JUB who will be giving a more in-depth presentation. We have Mr. Sean Hoisington, a professional engineer with JUB, and he has managed the development of the final product before you this evening and implementation of tools that will be utilized by staff to help get you the best information in the future. We also have Ms. Rhiannon Zender, who is also a professional engineer, and she's managed and been with this project since its beginning, with the development of the collection of traffic data, the coordination with the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization, system modeling, and development of the projects that address growth. So unless you have any questions from me, I will then turn it over to JUB.
Who do you want to answer? I have questions, but I don't know if you want me to ask them to you or to the engineers.
So since this is a public hearing, you can ask me staff questions now. You can also ask questions during the time that JUB is making their presentation. And then there's also the chance, if there's public testimony for rebuttal, which I think JUB and I will tag team. So if you have some staff direct questions, I can answer those now.
Okay, I'm not sure who they're more appropriate for, but I like asking you questions. You always give me great answers. So
Okay.
I think I'll start with you. After reviewing the Transportation Master Plan and listening to some of our upcoming projects, I am truly concerned that we don't have a reasonable north-south like thoroughfare in Post Falls, especially if we're implementing additional like lights and traffic control mechanisms on Idaho and Spokane. So I'm curious, in the master plan, I really didn't see a road, like you can get from Prairie to, what is it, like maybe pole line on Cecil without like too much. Like you can just go straight down on Spokane. You can get from pole line to Mullen before you start hitting a lot of. So I think like there's just not a part of Post Falls where you can truly get across town. And as we become larger and spread more into the prairie, I'm curious about how that's being addressed in this master plan.
So for our transportation system, where we're at, where we have our traffic signals and our roundabouts, those do control and slow down traffic.
Yeah.
As traffic along those major corridors, and I'm going to say the major corridors for us would be Pleasant View Road,
Okay.
McGuire, Chase,
Okay.
Spokane, Idaho, Greens Ferry. Those roads in and of themselves, we want traffic to be on those roads. And as traffic increases on them, it's going to increase the need of putting traffic control systems, whether they be roundabouts or traffic signals, at strategic locations.
But at every block, I mean, we're talking about putting a traffic control on Spokane at Pole Line, 12th, Mullen, Seltice, the interstate, on the other side on 4th. Like, how do you get across town north and south?
So on Idaho and Spokane Street in
Yeah,
particular.
yeah.
So we are looking at, as you go further to the north, that the traffic signal spacing is going to be about a half mile. So you've got a signal at Mullen Avenue on both Spokane and Idaho right now. A half mile north is 15th, and then a half mile north of that is Pole Line, where we switch over to a roundabout. We're now at the stage, over the past 25 years, we've gone from 3 traffic signals to now we have 20 in our inventory. And we're now at that state where we need to start looking at more technology implementation, where the traffic signals are going to be talking to each other to create these, traffic engineers are going to call them green bands, so that you get traffic to move through, so that you try to, you're at one stoplight, when it turns green, you move through and you go at the speed limit, you should hit the next light as being green. One really good location, which I'd like to point out as a recent implementation of that technology, is in the city of Coeur d'Alene. They have taken Government Way and they've coordinated the traffic signals on Government Way from Apple Way all the ways up to the signal that's before Prairie. Prairie becomes the city of Hayden. I have started going that route because I am just amazed that I will hit one red light and then I'll hit green lights almost the rest of the way through there most times of the day or the weekend when I happen to go through that.
Different than the optimization of Northwest and the 90, which is
Well,
a nightmare.
That is a nightmare. That's one of those problems, and we have that similar problem down here on Spokane Street between Mullen Avenue and the freeway.
Yeah.
We have a lot of traffic signals in a very tight corridor, and it gets very difficult to coordinate that, especially when you're trying to move around 20,000 vehicles per day through that corridor.
So can I restate then an answer to my question based on what you've said, which would be there isn't really an intention to have like a stretch of north-south roadway that you're able to travel without having lights. The idea is to put the interchanges in there and then optimize the lights so that if you're going the speed limit, you can drive through.
That is correct.
I don't like that. I'm going to be really honest with you.
Okay.
But that's okay. It's an answer to my question, and that's what I appreciate. So that makes me nervous then about this plan. I appreciate the stretches in Post Falls where some people like to insinuate last week that that's because I speed, and that is not the reason. I just like to be able to drive down the street and not stop every half mile. So there's no real intention of having, other than Pleasant View and then the 50 or the 41, which are on opposite sides of the city, a way to just get from the north side to the south side of the city.
If we started to look at trying to put in what you're talking about
yeah.
is what we would consider a principal arterial roadway.
Okay,
Seltice Way is a principal arterial roadway, but we have
Absolutely.
traffic signals on it.
I'm aware.
And that causes, that slows down your ability to move through town at a higher rate of speed. The higher the rate of speed you go and trying to handle more traffic,
It's not about the speed, it's about the stops.
it's about the stops. But if you want to prevent the stops, you then have to widen the roadway and reduce the access onto those corridors. So you'd be shutting off all the side streets so that you would then get to a point where you can only access at half mile or mile spacings. And then you would then see that you would need to put traffic signals or roundabouts at those access points.
Is not our philosophy for roads off of like the 41, isn't our philosophy there to have them at a quarter mile and a half mile? Isn't
Traffic
that
signals
usually-
at half mile spacing and
I'm
three-quarter turn
Backage
restriction at
Backage roads, thank
quarter
you.
mile.
I'm talking about backage
Yeah.
roads. Yeah, or surface roads. Okay, all right, so I would love to have this conversation with you in a time that doesn't make everyone stay here till 11, but it
Okay.
sounds like there's not a plan in the way that I am imagining it in the traffic master plan. Could you tell me a couple of things that were actually changed in this master plan from maybe what was originally proposed by the consultant based on public input from these different outreaches that we had?
One of the areas would be Mullen Avenue,
Okay.
where we were looking at Mullen Avenue in the original layout to be a larger and wider roadway.
Okay.
The problem with that we saw both from some public input as well as staff input as well, was that trying to push the width of Cecil Road
Okay.
would end up getting into the point where we would need to do multiple right-of-way acquisitions, possibly buying out an entire row of homes along one side or both sides in order to fit a larger roadway on it.
Okay.
Trying to think off the top of my head where there were other changes that were drafted. I know that there were, but I can't think of any right off the top
Gotcha.
of my head.
Okay. Okay. I think maybe that's mostly what I have for you.
Okay,
But yeah. So anyway, thank you so much.
you're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sean Hoisenson. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity tonight to present these highlights from your 2025 Transportation Master Plan. And of course, as Rob mentioned, Rhiannon Zender, the one in charge of the traffic analysis for the entire project, is with me tonight, and she's going to share this presentation. This effort represents a comprehensive regionally coordinated evaluation of your transportation system, and it reflects input from city staff and partnering agencies and the community, of course, throughout the entire planning process. And tonight culminates in a custom implementable plan that helps guide growth, improve connectivity, and support the community for years to come. And this transportation plan depicts a pre-planned future where Post Falls continues to grow with intention, but at the same time maintains your character as a community and continues your record of excellence in transportation service. I want to talk just a little bit about the highlights of what we'll discuss tonight. First of all, I want to talk about just some acknowledgement of the planning partners that were engaged in the process. Also, overview the transportation planning goals that were used as guidance. We also wanted to highlight the process for developing your plan, and that's going to be the bulk of what we talk about. And then also, Rhiannon's going to take us into more detail about the results and recommended improvements from the plan. One of the catalysts for success in this planning effort was a truly engaged technical advisory group. And starting with your staff and council participation, the TAG also included ITD, KMPO, Post Falls Highway District, and the City of Coeur d'Alene. But also profoundly helpful were the many community collaborators that I'm showing you on the screen here. A few of them, of course, were Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, Post Falls Police Department, KCFR, Post Falls Chamber, and the Post Falls School District. A really rich participatory group giving feedback and input to this planning process. Next, I want to just take a few seconds to talk about our guiding process as we moved from phase to phase along the pathway of developing the plan. We used 9 specific transportation planning goals, and the goals were well aligned with your comprehensive plan. In fact, in the plan document that you folks have in your packets, you can see connections between these transportation goals and from the plan and also from your comprehensive plan. But they're well aligned, and they cover subjects like access management and safety and circulation and freight mobility and planning for multiple modes and coordination with the community, the development community, and corridor preservation and as we've already discussed, quality coordination with adjacent planning partners. The plan development process, as you look at it kind of in a bird's eye view, public involvement was a overarching theme throughout the entire process. The community was engaged as Rob summarized, basically from beginning to end on the project. And then the planning was broken, throughout that process, the planning process was broken into phases, beginning with existing conditions assessment. We're going to go through these for you: multimodal analysis, alternatives analysis, and capital improvement planning, implementation planning, as Rob has already mentioned, and also some very effective GIS tools for your staff. Just real closely or quickly looking at the public involvement process, just for a minute, zooming into that. As we engaged in the planning process, we prioritized transparency and meaningful engagement to help shape a plan that was guided by community input. And so the public involvement goals pursued during the process ensured for us that information was accessible to the community, that public interaction was meaningful, and that feedback was genuinely valued and reflected in the outcomes of the plan. And thank you for the questions that you've already asked about that.
I'd love for you to tell me more ways that public input actually shaped this, like specifically as you go through, if you could.
That would be, it would be really nice to be able to bring along the actual, to actually pull out the actual public comments and then show you, because it wasn't that necessarily that the planning process had one direction and that the public came along and changed that direction. It was all developed at the same time. And so when we understood the public's concerns, those concerns were in our back pocket, so to speak, as we were developing solutions.
Maybe if you can think of an example
Sure.
when we get to that. This is one of those areas where the public gave us input, and that's how we arrived at this decision. If you
Okay.
see any of those as you go through.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we supported these public involvement goals by using a wide range of outreach methods to meet people where they were. And so this included in-person and online opportunities to participate. And the intent was to reach as many voices as possible using innovative methods of connection. And that helped us ensure that the feedback received was well-rounded and representative of the community. We also used many venues. First of all, we had an interactive website. We used social media tidbits for a little bit of educational materials. We used open houses as venues for public interaction, personal interviews, technical advisory group interaction like we've mentioned. Also an interactive comment map that was online and GIS based so that each person could actually just zoom in and share their concern at a certain spot. We had a booth at Post Falls Days, and we also use many informational flyers to help engage with the community. The public involvement process represented, it was genuine public involvement, public engagement, real opportunities for meaningful input and feedback. And the online system provided easy access to anybody wanting to participate, and the feedback was rich, and it had experienced local knowledge and everyday user concerns ranging from vehicular to pedestrian to bicycle safety, transit, freeway access, congestion concerns, and even comments about beautification of the city. Nearly 900 community members were engaged in that process. Moving forward in our planning process, our existing conditions assessment took a look closely at existing and future land use, the transportation network as it exists today, existing transit, bicycle and pedestrian networks, gaps in sidewalks and other infrastructure and freight routes. And in this stage, we drilled into each one of these categories at the same time while we took traffic counts at 80 major intersections across the city. So this, in a nutshell, this assessment helped us really establish a clearer picture of how the system functions today, and it identified key components and patterns and gaps across the network, and it also provided the foundation for all the planning recommendations that we're presenting to you in the plan. Multimodal analysis was was the next part of our process. And it really was truly multimodal. Not only did we look very closely at the vehicular systems performance, but we evaluated pedestrian and bicycle potential, and at the same time looking outwardly at local and regional multimodal connectivity, as you can see in the proposed multimodal projects. And then next, as we've evaluated your system, we looked from a vehicular perspective, we looked at traffic volumes in the PM peak for current conditions, and also projected that traffic into the future in 5, 10, and 20-year horizons, and looked at the results of growing that traffic and seeing the impacts of that traffic on our transportation system without making any improvements, so we understand what the future looks like if we did nothing. And at the same time, we looked at multimodal potential, which I'm going to share with you in just a second. We looked at the travel demand model that KMPO uses, refining that, and I'll talk about that a little bit more closely. And we also evaluated in our existing system in multimodal analysis crashes. And so one thing I wanted to mention here is that to estimate the felt experience of transportation system users, we used our analysis tools to evaluate total hours, and you can see on this slide as an example and in your plan, total hours of system delay across the network in these PM peak hours, estimated amounts of gas burned while you're waiting during that delay, and also the total number of stops during the analysis periods. And so these analyses and these measures help us, appreciate the understanding that congestion is an experienced thing, not just a calculated thing. And so we wanted to make sure that we could show you in our results that the improvements that we're suggesting do change the experience of each of your transportation users.
And are these metrics annual?
No, these metrics were shown at those peak times, like 2030, 2035, and 2045, those horizon years. And so when we measured, for instance, when we looked at 2030 and we measured the existing system, we measured those metrics in terms of, again, total hours of system delay felt at that period of time, that PM peak hour of at 2030, as well as gas burn during that same time and the number of stops. And then when we created mitigation for that, for that system, that increased system congestion, we were able to compare that and show that we've reduced the number of hours of delay, and that we've reduced the number of gallons of gas sitting there waiting in a queue, waiting for the light to turn green, those types of things.
If I can say it another way, so there's 319 hours of delay that's on the sidebar. That's in what period of time?
That's in the 5 to 6 p.m. peak hour of one of the days.
Just a single
Just
day?
one single day, yes.
So there's 319 hours of delay and 1,600 gallons of gas wasted in 1 hour in any given day.
In this case, we're reporting that in the PM peak hour, which is typically on your system and a lot of systems between 5 and 6 p.m.
Thank you.
So that's the number of hours of delay experienced during that peak hour, the number of gallons of gas. And so then that's something that we would compare to in the future, and then in the future with mitigation. So, yes.
So mitigation wouldn't assume that we would get to, say, 0 hours of delay. We would just, this is the baseline by which we can gauge how effective those mitigation measures would be,
yes.
because we've taken it from 319 to 219, and we've saved 100 hours of delay every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and of course, we're all going to experience some delay, especially in the PM peak hour, because everybody's getting off work and going to the grocery store and running home and picking up the kids. And so there's going to be delay at intersections, but can we mitigate that delay so that it's minimized and so the system continues to flow smoothly?
Maybe you could look at like number of marriages saved or something like that too through.
That is a great idea. I'm going to write that one down.
Homicides avoided.
I want to focus just for a moment on multimodal evaluations. This was kind of a neat process that we used through using our GIS tools. This graphic was used to develop and then evaluate bicycle and pedestrian-oriented needs and improvement scenarios. And so we used a GIS-based, what this is called as a heat map, to help us discern where multimodal investments might have the highest potential to be beneficial. And so the heat map was developed by combining all kinds of aspects of common non-vehicular attributes. And some of those were population and job density. And so if there's a lot of dense population and dense employment, walkable block sizes was another one. Public interest in multimodal enhancements, existence of sidewalks and bike routes, low vehicle ownership, mixture of land uses. And so all of those were kind of combined and created the different densities or shapes, the different densities of that color blue, for instance. The deeper the blue, the more likely these things were all true, and the most beneficial or the most likely to be used would be a multimodal investment. And so you'll notice that our recommended multimodal improvements kind of follow this general pattern, but in addition to that, the multimodal improvements that we've suggested also realize that there's regional connectivity with other people's networks that would be nice to have connected together with Post Falls on the outskirts of town.
Well, I do have a question, particularly about this area regarding bike paths and whatnot. And forgive me for not having as much familiarity. I wasn't involved in the workshops at the time while this was going through city council workshops. But does this plan, and for understanding, my concern is mostly about what the goal is for bicycle supporting infrastructure. And my concern is mostly centered around, we see around here, particularly in Coeur d'Alene, during Ironman preparation season, cyclists are all over the place. Mm-hmm. So is this plan more designed in building a bicycle network that's more of a share the road model, or more of a stay in your lane model? Like we're trying to move cyclists out of the way of cars.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say yes, a little bit of everything. One of the things that we kept in mind during the development identification of multimodal improvements was what's called, the industry calls level of stress. And so, for instance, it was attractive to look for parallel opportunities just off the high-trafficked arterial that we could use to put bicycle traffic, for instance. And so those just off that corridor, maybe one block off, they could be multimodal pathways. They could be sharrows or share the lane, or they could be striped lanes. And so it kind of depended on the situation, which one of the projects you're looking at. But what we were trying to do is provide a full breadth of solutions depending on where you were at. And one of the big themes I think that I see through what we recommended were pretty decent expansion in multimodal pathways, so that you could have bicycles and pedestrians on that same multi-use pathway. In areas that we did recommend share the road type lanes, it's very low traffic roads, so that it would almost be natural that a person would be using a road like that, trying to escape the stress of a higher traffic route like Seltice Way. So and then areas that I remember areas that we were looking at improving pedestrian or bicycle travel on busy corridors. We did suggest a couple places where we suggested cycle tracks, so that there was a little bit more of a barrier between the traveling public, between vehicular traffic and bicycle traffic. So, does that answer?
It does, thank you.
Thank you. Any more on that? And then also, finally, I want to just mention travel modeling. I wanted to mention that this analysis wasn't in a vacuum. Instead, we partnered with Iteris Inc. to coordinate use of the KMPO Regional Travel Demand Model. And this is a computer model used by KMPO for estimating vehicular trips produced and attracted by different land uses in town, and also evaluating the origins and destinations of those trips, and then how those trips are loaded onto the network. And so it was kind of a nice tool to be able to use for that. The regional model was refined by zooming in to Post Falls and breaking the larger areas into smaller zones. As you can see kind of in yellow, the red were the larger, and then the smaller zones were the refined zones were in the yellow. And really, this helps us to approximate a local versus regional travel and model how people are going to move around within Post Falls, not the more zoomed out look at the whole county or the MPO boundaries. And so it was a refined look at local operations while not neglecting regional impacts. So the regional impacts kind of fed into the planning that was taking place in Post Falls at the boundaries of the refinement that we worked with Iteris to create. And so we really appreciate that quality coordination with KMPO and are thankful for their participation in the planning process. If there's not any more questions for me yet, and again, we can come back up and we can have any discussion that you guys would like. I'm going to have Rhiannon come up and take us forward.
So before you go,
Yes.
just back on the bike commuting stuff. I used to be a bike commuter, and that was a very daunting prospect
Yeah.
sometimes. And what was really important is, and I'm just wondering if there's a mechanism, a practical mechanism for this, was I would use, one of the mapping providers like Google or Apple or Strava to find the route I was going to take. And they would update and improve that route map from time to time. And I'm just wondering if there's a mechanism that you would share this with those services, or how do they know, this is the preferred bike route for if you're going
Yeah.
from here to here in the city?
Yeah, I haven't personally done that. I know that there is a mechanism. I don't know how many of you, I use an app called Trail Forks. You can do that easily through there. But one of the things that you'll notice in your multimodal improvements, for instance, and I've ridden the route quite a few times, as many of you have, is the Centennial Trail, kind of in the Greens Ferry Road area. And so if you're riding along Greens Ferry, kind of headed towards in the Coeur d'Alene direction, all of a sudden at Greens Ferry, the trail takes a gigantic detour. And that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we provided for. And so the way we provided for that was making the assumption, and I think it's a realistic assumption, and that's why it's in your plan, that rail corridor would eventually be a rail to trail or a multi-use pathway. And so that is a key connection. Those Centennial Trail connections the Centennial Trail serves as a pretty decent core for multimodal travel in Post Falls, actually for the whole region, but in Post Falls. And you'll notice that we were serious about making connections in the north-south to be able to draw that opportunity for multimodal travel north into town. But we did look for those opportunities to make those strategic connections so that the Centennial Trail connects right where it should, instead of having to jump over on your bike over to Seltice and ride down to the 41 interchange and see if you can survive getting through it as you try to figure out how to get across onto the multimodal
You
pathway.
go down to Ponderosa, but
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the approach we took.
okay.
And yes, we would be happy to look into that as well, updating those
I think
resources.
that's important if you want adoption. If I look at Google Maps and it looks absolutely kamikaze to ride my bike to this place, then I'm not
Yes.
going to do it, right?
Yeah.
If Google knows, hey, we've got a good route for you, the city set up this route, adoption rates would be much higher.
Yeah, good point.
when it comes to intermodal, there's a lot of bias, I think, or pressure from international groups and federal groups as well to push people into more and more sustainable development goals and these types of things. Get out of your cars, 15-minute cities, as you know, a lot has been made over Agenda 2030 with the UN and all of that. How much of that, if any, has made its way? I think the public's going to ask this, so I'm asking you now. How much of that has made its way into this transportation plan where we're looking at intermodal and trying to encourage people to get out of their cars rather than just making it easier for those that wish to do so?
There was not in the planning process, there was a goal to promote multiple modes of transportation, and you can see that in the goals, but there was not a goal for achieving a certain percentage of mode shift. For instance, there wasn't like a goal of saying we want to get 10% of the people out of their cars and walking. And so these are why these changes are suggested. But what there was a more opportunistic approach to making investments where they would be successful and most utilized. And so when we looked at during the planning process, we looked to make sure that we weren't creating some sort of a multimodal improvement that was out someplace in some area of town that just wouldn't really get used. It also corresponded with many times with vehicular corridors, and then also in the heat map that's on the screen. Those are places where it's really likely that those types of improvements would really help. But there was not a 15-minute city agenda or anything like that was used to establish any of the proposed solutions in this plan.
So the intermodal is more opportunity and considered secondary to automobile traffic then?
I would say that it was considered, I don't know if it was, I guess maybe as far as volume of effort in terms of analysis, just because of the nature of traffic analysis, it was secondary, but it was taken seriously and it was thought through with regard to regional connectivity and the Centennial Trail and also lowering stress of multimodal users. That's the way it was approached.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Thank you.
All right. Moving along here in our plan development process, talk a little bit about our alternatives analysis and capital improvement planning. So taking the traffic analysis results from the performance analysis Sean previously discussed, we went through an alternatives analysis process to determine what projects or improvements were needed to mitigate the congestion that we're anticipating coming from the new growth. And then secondly, how much those improvements would cost. So an example of an alternatives analysis that we went through many times was in the future seeing some potential degradation of operations of an intersection. What is the improvement that would make that intersection function the way that we want it to? Was that a signal? Was that a roundabout? We take into consideration the context of the surrounding network, the functional classification of the road, the cost of the project, and refine that into a recommended improvement. Want to touch on, as Rob did earlier, on just the change that is continuing to occur in our region and in our city, and then how we addressed those influx transportation studies, the Rathdrum Prairie Transportation Study, and then the I-90 widening. We took the best information that we had and incorporated that into our analysis, knowing that in the future things will change, but It's important that the city doesn't stop planning and looking and budgeting for the future, and just highlights the importance of continuing to update these plans on a periodic basis. So from that traffic analysis, we determined that about 91 projects would be needed to make the system operate really well into 2045. So those 91 projects included recommendations for 13 new signals, 17 signal upgrades, 5 new roundabouts, 5 existing roundabouts that need some sort of expansion, some turn lane restrictions at 6 intersections across the city, 5 projects based purely on safety needs, 27 corridor projects, including 30 miles of roadway expansion, and then 13 intersections where we identified the improvement needed as either a signal or a roundabout, which provides the city with the flexibility of looking at either one in the future and basing the decision on the current safety needs, current capacity needs, and budget available.
Are these projects prioritized?
Yeah, so they are prioritized in 3 different buckets, not necessarily in order. So the way that the project will happen is going to be dependent upon the way that development occurs. We may anticipate that a development is going to happen over here, but it gets delayed and something happens over here. So a project may, it may move from midterm to short term. It may, be shuffled around within those different buckets as well. So it's a really flexible plan that allows the city to move projects into different timeframes as they become needed.
Okay, there aren't like mission critical projects that need to be done regardless of growth that you identified?
So there were a couple that we identified as needed currently. Rob touched on a couple of those. So the
Yes,
Pleasant View
Idaho
interchange,
and,
yeah, yep. So those are in the works.
Okay, all right.
I have a question
yeah.
about this short-term slide. Obviously, that's very immediate projects that need to take place. Is there a total for that row of costs?
There
estimates?
is. I'll get to that in just a moment
Okay,
for
and then
you.
once we have that total, I want to know, obviously, funding is coming from impact fees, developer agreements, or something to that effect,
Yep.
and grants. And does any need to come from the general fund? Is my first question, and my second question is, how much are we able to account for from the impact fees and developer agreements and grants?
I think that's probably a question that Rob is going to need to answer to get to drill down to it. But I've got some general information I'll share with you that hopefully clarifies some of it.
Okay.
Just to break right now, explain the difference between the analysis recommended sequence.
Can you come speak on the microphone?
I was just saying, Rhiannon, you might spend just a minute explaining the difference between the analysis recommended short, medium, and long-term and implementation that's based on realistic situations, so they can see ahead to that.
Sounds good. Yes. So these lists are based purely on the traffic modeling, the traffic analysis that we did, and then the next step in the process was taking these lists, in workshop form. What is realistically going on? What development does the city know is upcoming? And what maybe did the traffic model not show that we know with our, local knowledge engineering judgment needs to happen sooner or maybe later.
And this short-term list was, I'm assuming, created because the level of service was slipping in that
Exactly,
area? Okay.
yes. Yep, yes, exactly. So this list you see here is based purely on traffic analysis.
These cost estimates,
are these exclusively just the cost to do the improvement in already existing city rights-of-way, or is this estimating the need to acquire land through eminent domain?
If the project needed right-of-way acquisition, that cost was accounted for in this process. Also included is engineering design fees, construction administration costs, and then the actual construction costs in addition to right-of-way.
Thank you.
Bet. All right, so moving along here. In addition to the vehicular projects, we also developed a list of 30 multimodal recommendations. So those include new sidewalks, cycle tracks, trail connections. And again, as Sean said, we really focused on the locations that showed the most potential for demand, and then what would provide connectivity across the city. And then just to touch on some of the conversation earlier, I think, you know, we all recognize that in the middle of winter, using, you know, your bicycle to commute is there's only a small fraction of people that might do that, right? So these multimodal improvements are not recommended to, you know, they're recommended to provide an alternative for the community should they want it, not force people to use it.
So we're gonna put the snow in the bike lane on some roads, is what you're saying?
Yes,
Yes.
probably so,
Got
yes.
it. Okay.
All right. So additionally, we reviewed many of the city standards used for development. So we looked at street standards, which is, you know, the width of the roadway, how many lanes they have, features such as bike lanes or pathways. And all of those are, you know, dependent upon the context of the road and its use and its functional classification. We looked at the operational standards of roadways and intersections, basically, you know, how easy it is or isn't to get around and what the city's tolerances are for when a development comes in and puts that extra stress on the roadway. What is the city's, you know, what are they okay with? And then we also looked at access management standards, which is the spacing between roadways and driveways. Wanted to note here that there's a regional policy that affects this a little bit. The KMPO Critical Arterial Corridor Policy identifies a little bit different intersection and access spacing, and Pleasant View, Prairie, Hayden, and Greens Ferry are all considered regional critical arterial corridors. And then we also reviewed the traffic impact study standards, and all of these are included in the new TMP. So next is the implementation planning. So when do these projects really need to happen? How do we make them happen? Kind of what we've been talking about. You know, we're taking the raw data, the raw output, you know, this is what's needed, and then kind of bring it into what we know locally. So it's all based on timing, based on anticipated growth patterns and our regional modeling. The timing of this is based on the best information that we have now, and again, things will change. But it does provide the city with flexibility to move things around according to development potential, funding availability, and what's actually going on. So this is a list of our refined short-term projects. This is what we're calling our implementation table. So in the plan, there's a detailed project description, expected cost, including cost sharing, and expected impact fees, direct developer costs, and then other sources such as grants from state or the federal government. So the grand total for our short term is a little bit over $10 million in 2025 dollars. And digging into the table a bit, I know it's kind of small, it's very small for you to read, but it's defined there what we're expecting to be impact fees versus developer versus other.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. So, and then this is the midterm implementation list. Same information, detailed project description and impact or cost sharing, developer costs, et cetera. Grand total for this group of projects is just over $53 million in 2025 dollars. And then finally, our long-term implementation list. The needs really start showing up here. It's a longer period term. This is a 10-year window where the other two were 5-year terms. Do want to mention here that a significant number of these projects may or may not be needed depending on the outcome of the Rathdrum Prairie Transportation Study and the ultimate build-out of I-90 and what happens with the interchanges along I-90 through Post Falls. So bottom line on this one is almost $262 million.
And that's all just capital improvement projects. That's not any, that doesn't include anything having to do with maintaining current infrastructure.
That's correct. And this is assuming that the growth that we have experienced in our region over the past, 10, 15, 20 years continues to occur. So, should there be a slowdown, this would change significantly.
Okay.
So finally, in our process was the development of a GIS story map. Two kind of sections of that. So the first part is a community tool. So instead of that, 800 page PDF that is super inaccessible for the public, we developed a public-facing interactive map that summarizes the entire planning process and will be available to the city and public with the adoption of the document. With this web map, community members can scroll through and see what projects are planned in their neighborhood or on their commute. Some benefits is obviously keeping the public informed of what the city's planning and what they've got going on. Additionally, there's some potential time savings to city staff. Say somebody, sees an issue somewhere, they can go to the map and they can, they can see that the city recognizes that there's an issue and that there is a project planned for this intersection or this roadway and the general timeline of when that might occur. And I'll just click on this real quick, just give you guys a quick overview. So we've got the whole planning process. You can click across the top or you can just kind of scroll down through and it takes you through the different sections. So nice handy tool, clickable GIS maps, stuff like that. All right. And then finally, a web application that is internally facing and for staff use. So really has the nuts and the bolts of the plan, has all of the traffic analysis results, more detailed project information, detailed cost estimates. You can go into a cost estimate and see, if there was anticipated right-of-way acquisition, and then traffic count data and projection data. So in summary, it's a tool for staff that relieves the need of a big, thick document, although I've seen Rob and his well-loved transportation plan all tabbed up. We think this will be a much easier tool for him to use. That comes to the end of our presentation. We'd love to take any more questions if you guys have any.
I'm still concerned about the north-south corridor, and I guess my question with regard to the decision that we're making tonight is there an ability to review the master plan and look at the necessity or implementing something that is able to bring commuters north and south, like Prairie, Seltice, and the 90, take residents east and west?
Yeah, so there are, so based on the functional classification of the roadway, you go from local to collector to arterial and then principal arterial freeways. Along that step of going up the classification, you're expecting less delay, less, all the way from there's a driveway every 20 feet on a local roadway that you are, you've got to go 20 miles an hour, and all the way up to, access controlled freeway type of a situation. So from my understanding, the city network generally is more of that lower classification of roadway, where it's really providing access to homes, access to businesses. There are some arterial roadways that are meant more for that long-range travel.
Right.
And that's why we have the...
And how would one do that from north to south if you needed to go from Pole Line to Seltice? Or Prairie to Seltice?
Greens Ferry roadway is a north-south that goes all the way. And then yeah, there's on the Chase, Pleasant View.
But Greens Ferry turns into like local roadway at some point, doesn't it go through a county island, or like at least right next to a county island? We're looking at traffic controlling more on Spokane and Idaho. Cecil doesn't go all the way through. It goes past the high school and then the church. So your options are really Pleasant View on the far west side and the 41 on the far east side. And so I guess not to like belabor exactly which road, I'm just curious, as we continue to expand north, it is quite difficult to get effectively from the north end of town to the southern end of town. And as we continue to expand north, I'm curious as to if at this point in the master planning, there's an ability for us to like truly evaluate having a road that's more closely aligned to Seltice or to Prairie that can move residents quickly in the city north and south.
One of the projects is a widening of Greens Ferry Road,
Okay.
so that would be widened to 5 lanes. So that would really help provide some capacity for that north-south travel. Pleasant View is another one of those that's proposed to be widened to 5 lanes. So just with those additional lanes, that inherently gives you some more capacity.
So Greens Ferry would be the answer for the north to south. That will be a principal arterial, and that's what it's classified as?
I can't, minor arterial, actually.
But we need a principal arterial to go north and south, right? We don't have any? Or we're not going to have any?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the difference between a minor arterial and a principal arterial comes down to how much traffic do you anticipate being on it. We do set our roadway classifications based upon what is the estimated traffic volume and what is the correct roadway to handle that traffic volume.
Okay.
If you want to start seeing roadways that allow for, in more of the developed area of Post Falls, north-south throughput with a traffic signal spaced every mile, then we would need to go in and take a look and say, okay, we have to start closing every local access roadway into that. And then when you get to locations like 16th Avenue, which is a major collector intersecting Greens Ferry Road,
Yep.
which is a minor arterial, what is the correct methodology to address that traffic. If your priority is to move traffic north-south and we're going to let east-west get stuck, then you either say, I'm putting in a traffic signal and I'm going to penalize the east-west movement to the greatest extent possible to move more traffic north-south, or you go up to the next step, which is, I want to get that north-south movement through a developed area. I don't want traffic signals. So what do you do with those side streets? You close them off, you force people onto other roads, but they are going to have to get onto that road, using Greens Ferry as an example, at some point.
Sure.
So where are the access points going to be? Mullen Avenue, and if the next one's at Pole Line, so what do you do with Horsehaven? What do you do with 16th? What do you do with 12th? Are
But
they
surely you ask
closed,
those-
or do they become bridges?
Surely you ask those same questions when we're developing Prairie and Seltice, right?
Well, if you look at Prairie and Seltice, I'll jump in a bit, because I've been
Yeah.
here for a minute. So if you go way back in time, east-west here seems, it's a bit anomalous because we've got a freeway that goes right through the middle of it.
Sure.
So freeways are extremely expensive to build. You got underpasses, overpasses, on-ramps, off-ramps, all that kind of stuff. So it's almost what you're asking for is a north-south freeway. Some way to get north and south as efficient.
highway.
If you look at Seltice, how many lights are on Seltice right now in the city of Post Falls? 15? I mean, there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
So back in the day, if you wanted to go east and west, north of town and not get stuck in stop signs in Seltice, you took 12th. There was nobody out there. So 12th was the east-west. Well, then the city grew. It became 16th. There was nobody out there.
Yeah.
Well, the city grew. Now there's stop signs. It became Pole Line. There was nobody out there. Now it's Prairie. And 10 years from now, Prairie's going to have stoplights every quarter mile. That's just the way it goes with growth. Unless we want to invest tens of millions of dollars into a freeway that allows people to go under it. So it's going to be Hayden Avenue is going to be the next east-west. It's just the nature of growth and the amount of money. The other downside of city development, too, is nobody has a crystal ball of how fast it's going to grow. So you set blocks and street widths and everything else. When they were set back in 1890 or whatever, nobody was anticipating Post Falls to be 55,000 people or 100,000 people or whatever. There's just not, we either have to start buying houses on both sides of a street, creating off-ramps, underpasses, all that sort of thing so you can get north-south, or it's just the cost of growth is you got to go farther out to get up and down.
Yeah.
If you're on Idaho Road, for example, and you live on one block in on 16th, you want to get your friend's house on the other side of Idaho Street, one block in on 16th. Then the alternative is to close that off, have them go all the way down to the freeway, get off the next exit, come back over to go 2 blocks away from their house. That's not very efficient. So it's just one of those. We either need to convince the taxpayers to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on some kind of north-south freeway so we can get up and down Idaho Street faster or Greens Ferry or whatever, or we just need to accept that this isn't a small town anymore.
I
We're gonna
can't
have some
imagine that
stoplights.
I would reasonably be confused to have requested a north-south freeway. We tried to build one at 41, and there's a stoplight every 5 seconds, it feels
Highway
like there.
95 is the same problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. What I'm asking for is some consideration north-south in the same regard that we have consideration to throughput going east-west, where we do make the decisions to close off certain intersections and we do prioritize certain. So what's the road on Seltice that is like by Gross Donuts and Taco Bell that takes you like turn down it and you can go, that's how you like get to Denny's and the cute Tim's Butcher.
Yeah, it's a frontage road for
Graffiti,
the
is it?
freeway.
Yeah, you have to make a left, right? Well, if you're going, it is technically a road, but when we talk about that, we don't talk about it in the way of like, so what, you're gonna stop all of the traffic from that road because you don't put a light there? Well, of course not, because you have to prioritize some traffic over other traffic.
That road's also only 1 block long.
My point is only that, like, we get in these like circular conversations, I feel like, with the traffic master plan, where it is in this moment where we approve the traffic master plan and then we say, oh, well, the street has this classification based on the master plan that we agreed on right now. And so because of that, this is how we're going to operate for every development for the next 15 years, however many years it is, 20 some odd years. And I just want to be sure at this stage that we don't become a town similar to some of the aspects of Coeur d'Alene, often in the valley as well, where your only option to get anywhere without hitting a million traffic lights is to take the freeway. And as soon as you get off the freeway, you're going to be stopping every other block. And the residents don't like that. That's what makes it feel not like a small, livable town. I am not saying that we should go 45 on every single main road that goes north and south. I'm just saying that I would like at least one road between Pleasant View and the 41 considered to be something that you can get downtown, like across town. And I don't see that consideration here, or I'm asking for you to point it out very clearly to me.
I do think that Greens Ferry Road is going to be our major north-south roadway. It provides regional connectivity up to Rathdrum. It will
Okay.
be the only connecting point between Pleasant View and State Highway 41 that would allow you to get to State Highway 53 once they close McGuire Road. Our plan is for that to be a 5-lane roadway from Seltice Way, actually from 3rd Avenue all the ways up to Hope Avenue. That's what our master plan is showing.
Okay.
Within the master plan, or within our roadway design standards for minor arterial roadways, whether they're a 3-lane or a 5-lane, we reserve 110 feet of right-of-way. That gives the city the ability, long-term, hopefully beyond my experience here with the city of Post Falls, that if we need to come back beyond the horizon of this plan, that we can still widen those roadways and there's enough room to go from 3 lanes to 5 lanes. We've seen that on Mullen Avenue back in 2004. The master plan was showing that Mullen Avenue only needed to be a 5-lane road from State Highway 41 to Greens Ferry Road. Prior to the 2004 master plan back in 1996, the city had started doing some of the expansion of Mullen Avenue west of Greens Ferry to 5-lane. We didn't change our course, and that was actually a good thing because now we're seeing in this master plan, we've now identified that Mullen Avenue needs to be a 5-lane road from Highway 41 to Spokane Street.
Library, yeah.
So that will happen, and we have the ability that we can do it. We've got the same thing on Greens Ferry Road that we can do that. Pole Line Avenue, if you go back to the 2017 plan, had a 3-lane road in front of the high school. Well, that's not going to work anymore. But we do have, and we have been building a 5-lane facility in there. And so I see that in Greens Ferry. Right now, the master plan is not identifying that we need more than a 3-lane road on Spokane Street or on Idaho Street north of where we already have 5 lanes. Part of the master plan is we have identified levels of service. So based upon the traffic volume, based upon the delay, it says, is there a problem or not? If there isn't a problem.
Just in the interest of council not absolutely slaughtering me
Okay.
on our text messages, sorry, I'm sure what you're going to say is fantastic. Greens Ferry is identified as a north-south main corridor. We're not going to put lights every other intersection.
That's the road.
But I think it's a reasonable consideration. Like, is it
Completely.
because I drive my children around all day long? Is that because I'm the one that does?
Well, it's one of those, there's
Nathan,
no
what are
solutions,
you?
only
You're going to
trade-offs,
say
so.
something to me, and I want to hear it.
No, I think the principle here that we need to keep in mind is there are no 100% solutions to any of this. It's just a matter of trade-offs.
Yeah.
And making the most improvements that will serve the most people. So when you're talking about a north-south, corridor that goes through the center of town, first of all, I think the areas that you're talking about, specifically Chase, Spokane, and Idaho Street, the major difficulty there is they're already built out.
Yeah,
And so
I
we
agree.
have a lot of neighborhood access that really needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I live there, in the central part of town, and so the idea of not, say, for your example of Idaho Street and 15th, putting a light there, it's a beautiful idea.
Okay.
Because I experience it.
Sure.
I understand that those people living, north of there in Fieldstone and farther north probably think, this is really disruptive to me, but I think it does the most good for the most people.
Okay.
One of the things about having a higher speed corridor, as like you mentioned on Idaho Street, is it's not just a free pass to move a bunch of traffic, because what is happening now is that there's volumes of traffic that is trying to get onto Idaho Street that can't. which necessitates some type of mitigation. The light is the alternative that we have. If we don't do that, all it does is overburden Spokane Street, which will then present the same problem. You have a high volume of traffic of those people from, anywhere from Idaho Street west that are trying to go north and south that can't get onto Idaho are going to find the next best route, which is going to be Spokane Street, and we're going to run into the same thing. So the idea of kind of exclusively designating a north-south actually concentrates traffic on those other streets because Idaho wouldn't provide the access.
I think the
So-
key to what you're saying is that it's all built out, because if you look at Cecil over in Field,
With the pole line.
you don't have community access to Cecil between Pole Line and Prairie, right? Because we didn't build it that way. So it's just like the backsides of houses that are on the street. So you don't have anyone trying to get there except for the designated accesses that we built. And you can move freely. And I'm not advocating for a highway. I'm not even asking for every single north and south street to be there. I'm happy with Greens Ferry that we don't put a light at every single intersection. That's really all that I wanted to hear.
So I just want to elaborate on one little piece on that. So Spokane Street, Idaho Street, and Greens Ferry are being given priority north-south movement.
Okay.
We do see the need for traffic signals at the half-mile point between Pole Line and Mullen Avenue. In between, and this is in particular for Greens Ferry, Spokane, and Idaho, 12th Avenue, which is the minor collector roadway, is identified in the plan to restrict access, and that traffic will not be able to go east-west across those intersections. And that traffic will be able to make left turns from Greens Ferry, Spokane, and Idaho onto those side streets, but those side streets can't make left turns onto those roadways. So that will, I think, start going in the direction of what you're talking about. That's the first step. If we need, we start looking in future transportation master plans. Do we need to restrict more access points, maybe even prior to another transportation master plan? If you start having a safety issue where you have a lot of collisions, then you look and say, do I need to close more of those intersections to provide better access, maintain the continuity through the system in what you want to do with north-south movement versus east-west?
I just wanted one north-south corridor, you guys. That's all I was asking for in the beginning of
Well, I
this.
think
You're
it's
asking a lot.
it's very reasonable.
I like Greens Ferry. It doesn't help me out. Spokane would help me out, but Greens Ferry seems reasonable. 5 lanes in this master plan. That's what it's set for, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But the challenge is when you get down from Greens Ferry to Interstate 90, which is where most of that traffic is heading when it's going north-south, you get to what I'm not sure exactly what ITD's plan was when they put our exits and entrances in, is sort of threw a dart and put an entrance where it landed and an exit where the next dart landed, because it makes no sense in the central part of the city. But Greens Ferry doesn't go to a highway, so now you're going to be on collector and arterial streets trying to get to the freeway, hitting the light at Spokane Street or wherever you're going. It's confusing, but Greens Ferry does seem like it's the best option we have, because there's so much county land in the middle where it might be cheaper than, rather than taking out rows of houses, we can take out a few feet of ground. For me, since most of the housing developments that people want to develop and annex are on the north side, we have to, in the comprehensive plan, have a way to say no until these roads are ready, because the more people we add on the north side, the more pressure we're putting on the north-south. Exactly as Councilor Stigler is saying, we don't have a good north-south way to get traffic through there, and it's already starting to bottleneck. So I would love to see a north-south plan incorporated into this somehow, either through amendment in the future or before we approve this, just to see what is the plan for getting all of that traffic for future growth, if we're gonna sit on this and hatch it for the next 10 years, or we need to start saying no to more of the annexations that are proposed on the north side of the city.
Part of the issue is some of those north-south roads go through county pockets. We do not have the ability, based upon my understanding, to go into the county pockets and do eminent domain. You need to get those areas annexed in so that we could then either do eminent domain or through the development of those properties, we get some of the improvements we need as well as the rights of way and easements. So with our philosophy of as growth occurs, growth pays for growth, so the developers put in the pieces along their frontage, we end up with a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle. We know long-term we're going to get there. The difficult part is moving in that direction and getting to that point. There's a couple of those county pockets where it's like the only way you're going to get the road through on them is you're going to have to buy the entire house out. So, and growing from where we're at now at within spitting distance of 50,000 population to, if our projections are correct, to be around 100,000 by 2045, we've got some work in front of us.
Yeah, we just simply don't have the infrastructure or the ability to create that infrastructure without some sort of major investment in a north-south arterial road. And so I hope that all of us, when we're presented with these, 100,000 is not inevitable. So I hope that when we're presented with these plans to annex more land on the north side, that we keep this in mind, because we're at a point where it seems like the traffic doesn't leave at the end of the summer like it used to, and getting around is very difficult sometimes. And so a lot of the work that's been put into this, I can see it's going to have a great effect, like widening Hayden and things like that. That would have a great effect. But our weakness is exactly as Councilor Stigleter said. It is the north-south travel through the city without having to stop constantly and have that backed up. There's schools letting out on some of those roads at certain times, and then AM/PM bottlenecks. So it is definitely an issue.
Any other questions for me?
Can the tagline of the master plan be "All roads lead to Rob"? Will you be here in 2045?
I don't
Yes.
anticipate that,
Okay.
no. And, that comment came up at the last city council
Yeah, I
meeting, and
remember.
I've had a number of people refer that to me.
Oh, good.
It's kind of fun, so I appreciate the humor on that. Okay, public comments.
Okay, we're done with the presentations, right? Or was there more that you didn't get to yet? Okay. Any public testimony?
We have none.
All right, so there's nothing to rebut. We can move on. All right, council discussion or motion?
Do you need to close the?
I'd move to approve the City of Post Falls 2025 Transportation Master Plan.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion?
I'm a little concerned, again, like I mentioned, I wasn't present at the time when those workshops were being done, and frankly, having this 700-plus page transportation master plan put on the agenda and made available to me on Friday, I haven't had the opportunity to fully read it. So I'm not comfortable with voting to approve it yet. I have liked a lot of the answers I've heard today, but in the interest of wanting to fully and fairly review the document before I vote to approve it, I would actually like to see it tabled for another meeting. And I think there were a lot of concerns and questions, a lot of them from Councilor Stigleter, that I would like the answer to as well. So I would ask that we consider a motion to table this for to be brought back at another date.
Second.
Well, I'll withdraw my motion.
If we bring it back again, does it have to be a full public hearing, or can it be unfinished business?
So I think we need to gavel and close the public hearing.
Public hearing is closed.
And at that point, I think we can just return it as unfinished business for additional deliberations.
I move to table the City of Post Falls 2025 Transportation Master Plan to a future meeting for continued deliberation.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Mosby,
Aye.
Plou,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Stigleter,
Aye.
Luca.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. That is tabled. Before we move on to the next thing, I neglected the announcements that I was supposed to read at the beginning of the meeting. So Community Recycle Day will be held this Saturday, April 25th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at City Hall. Residents can recycle electronics, shred important documents, safely dispose of unused prescriptions, and more, all in one convenient location. The city is hosting presentations and a drop-in workshop on April 29 through 30 as part of the Comprehensive Plan Update. 3 identical presentations will be offered on Wednesday, April 29th, followed by a drop-in open house on Thursday, April 30th, where residents can learn more and share feedback on future land use and development. Arbor Day will be celebrated on Saturday, May 2nd from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Chameleon Park. Urban forestry staff will provide educational demonstrations, and free trees will be available for the first 100 participants. More details on all events are available at the city's website at postfalls.gov. Okay, with that taken care of, we will move on to the next agenda item for unfinished business returning ordinances. First item up is the Quarry Sports Complex Phase 1 construction agreement.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Robbie Quinn, Parks Planner, here this evening seeking council's approval for the mayor to sign 2 agreements related to the Quarry Sports Complex, the first one being the construction agreement and the second one being the construction administration agreement. So just quickly going through some of the background on what we've done to date, starting back in 2019 with the master plan, and then followed up by the mass grading plan, which then we did the mass grading construction throughout the entire site, and then we moved on to the Cecil road frontage design, completed that road frontage construction, designed the irrigation well specs, installed the irrigation well, and then most recently completed the 100% Phase 1 CD package, and that is the project here this evening for construction. Few of the recent council touch points. Back in 2024, we requested approval to apply for the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. A few months after that, we did a lot line adjustment. If you recall, there was a lot line that was going to run right through the middle of our building here, so we moved that lot line just this way here. And then November 2025, we received approval from the state for the Land and Water grant, which was accepted by council. And then a month later, we did council approved an easement for Ross Point Water District for their existing sewer service that runs on the north side of our property here.
Was there any discussion in the lot line adjustment conversation about acquiring some of that southern portion of the Ross Point Water District property?
No, not at that time.
Okay, thanks.
So to recap, Phase 1, we'll be installing 2 multi-use fields, a restroom and a shelter building, a large parking lot, an entry plaza, and then the maintenance yard. And I'll touch a little bit on the alternates in a moment.
Those blue things aren't pools, are they?
Those are courts.
Great.
No, they're not. So we put this out to bid March 11th and had our bid opening on April 1st. We received 1 bid from La Riviere for just under $4.9 million, which came in about $138,000 under the engineer's estimate, so pretty close to the estimate, which means we weren't able to move forward with any of the 2 alternates, which one was for the playground and one was for the sports courts.
Any guess on why nobody else wanted to bid?
So, great question. We had a pretty good turnout at our pre-bid meeting, which was mandatory. And I would say we had about 40 people there. Not all of them were primes. A lot of them were subs. But I think there were about 5 prime contractors that could have bid it. And we were a little surprised as well. So our consultant did some phone calls to the contractors, and I contacted a few just to see if there was anything glaring that we may have missed. And a lot of it came down to timing. One of the contractors said they ended up being awarded like 4 projects during that window, so their season was basically full. The other one, again, was just timing part of the year that they couldn't do it. we actually had a nationwide sports complex builder that was there, and he had actually been contacting me every year for the past 4 years. So he reached out to me saying, how did we come in on our bid? And I told him he didn't bid it. So I think because of the size of their company, he wasn't really involved on the final bidding portion of that, more just the estimating. But so in general, I think it was mostly just a timing issue, which was, you know, kind of good to hear that it wasn't anything that had to do with the site or the project or the plans. So following review by city staff and our consultant, Le Riviere was deemed a responsive bidder, and we are recommending the award to them this evening. And also seeking a 5% contingency for a total ask of the construction portion of $5,102,888.18. And this will be paid out of the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant as well as impact fees. And then the second portion, another contract would be with MTLA, our consultant, for the construction observation throughout the project, which includes submittal reviews, pay app requests, inspections, daily logs, material reviews, and quantity tracking. So that contract came out to $157,046.50, and that would be paid out of impact fees. So the total ask this evening for both contracts plus a construction contingency is $5,259,934.68. And again, $1.25 million of that being paid out of our grant and the remaining out of park impact fees. If approved this evening, we would issue a notice to proceed for May 2026, anticipating an 8-month construction window with substantial completion around November and final into December, and then most likely contract closeout in January, February timeline. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
If you go back one slide. What's that parcel to the left that's darkly shaded that has a line to it but no
That
description?
is the maintenance yard. Right here?
And so that's part of phase one?
Correct, yes. So that's where our well is currently drilled, and so we'll be obviously hooking up the pumps for that situation. That's where the main power is coming into the site, and it will be where a future building, maintenance building is, which you can see right here.
Okay.
So it will be fully fenced at this point and a gravel maintenance yard.
You know, are there bollards to keep vehicles from,
Yes.
vandals from traveling on the fields?
There's a curb, and we do have bollards kind of in this area here where there's the ADA access. They also have curb stops for those, but the ADA is flush. But the bollards are there actually more for a maintenance standpoint, so we can access them. Some are removable, and we can access the fields.
Thanks.
And we do also have bollards in this area here as well to prevent vehicles from traveling into the plaza, but the plaza is set up to be used for food trucks and et cetera, so we do still need vehicle access to there as well.
Further questions?
Quickly, you're with I can never pronounce that. La Riviere's bid and your contingency, you're about 104,000 over your engineer's estimate. Is that of concern to you at all?
No, I don't think so. We have it budgeted either way, so and I think the estimate didn't even include a contingency, or I guess it was kind of built in. But the short answer is no.
Okay.
We have it planned
have it.
for future. Everything is still laid out on track for all the other projects we have committed to as well.
I would move to approve the Quarry Sports Complex Phase 1 construction agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mosby,
Aye.
Blue,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Stigleader,
Aye.
Luca,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is Seltice Way Rehabilitation and Pipeline Project recommendation to award.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Andrew Arbini, Projects Division Manager. So this is a very significant project for both the Utilities and Streets Division. It will accomplish both current and future needs. As such, we've taken a team approach in presenting all the information tonight. So together, Jackson and I will cover the project material. Just to clarify, this presentation includes both items B and C on the unfinished business. So they are separate action items, but related as they're connected to the Seltice project. We did put together an outline of the presentation. I'll cover the first half, talking project background and the history, and then Jackson will cover the construction phase and the request of council this evening. Project limits are Seltice Way, generally from Chase Road to McGuire Road. So I'll start with what we're building with this project. So this will install the future utility needs in Seltice Way. This is all the wastewater pipelines that have been identified in the master planning documents. As a result, we're reconstructing the roadway. So this is a complete rebuild, removing all the subsurface material, including the original concrete highway underneath the roadway. So it starts from the subgrade and we'll rebuild back up. That level of work is based on a 20-year design. So envisioning that this road will last at least 20 years. We will also be addressing some stormwater deficiencies within the corridor and making some minor improvements to pedestrian facilities and the trail that runs through the project area.
Andrew, did it have to take it down to the base because of neglect over time, or, I mean, it's unusual, isn't it, to go that far down?
So there's a combination. Yes, this is the first project that I've been involved with at the city where we've done a full rebuild of the roadway. Historically, this was the US 10 highway that ran through that corridor. It was approximately 20 feet wide. Over time, Seltice has built on top of that roadway. So there's been improvements done, but nothing that's addressed the subsurface area. So I'll talk a little bit about how we started at rehabbing the road. And as we got into that design, it became clear that there was an opportunity to also include the underground infrastructure that's needed in the future. So that also drove some of the decision-making in removing that concrete and subsurface material. But there was a large amount that would need to have been removed without putting the utilities in the ground. That probably covers a little bit of the talking points I was going to go through one by one. So the existing pavement's in poor condition, and to the best efforts of the Streets Division, we've been able to maintain that and patch it, but the ultimate solution is to replace the roadway. So a pavement condition study was done in around 2020 citywide, and that confirmed that Seltice does need some attention. We supplemented that with a geotech report, working with a geotech firm, and they were able to map out the subsurface area as well as the extents of the concrete highway underneath. Because of the magnitude of the project and the direction we were heading, we had some interest from utilities, and that was recognizing that we have future needs in Seltice for wastewater infrastructure and combining the project, so including all of the wastewater needs into this roadway project. We also reached out to outside entities, so City of Rathdrum and East Green Acres in particular. Both of those entities have and operate infrastructure in the project limits in Seltice. So during the design, we brought two separate MOUs to City Council. Those were approved. One was with City of Rathdrum and the other with East Green Acres Irrigation District. I'll run through each one just as a background of what's entailed here. So for those that may not know, the City of Rathdrum pumps their wastewater to the City of Post Falls and is treated at the Post Falls Water Reclamation Facility. They have a need for another force main pipe to accommodate future flows. So similar to City of Post Falls' future wastewater needs, they also have similar needs. They were very interested in participating in the project and combining their work with ours. That MOU outlines reimbursement from City of Rathdrum to Post Falls for their portion of the work. And similar method, we initiated an MOU with East Green Acres Irrigation District. So EGID for short. They service part of their water purveyor that serves a portion of the City of Post Falls. So they have infrastructure in the Seltice Way project limits. There's a agreement in place between City of Post Falls and EGID that predates this project. And that essentially outlines that the entity performing construction work impacting the other entity's infrastructure shall be responsible to protect the other's work. So in short, City of Post Falls is responsible to protect East Green Acres work as we impact it in this area. East Green Acres will perform that work, they'll protect their lines, and then they will be reimbursed by the City of Post Falls for that protection. That allows them to remain in control and ensure that their work is getting done per their requirements. So summarizing the benefits of having both of these MOUs and these entities, really it got all of us talking early on in the project, and we were able to coordinate and identify those opportunities. And then through the MOUs, we're able to establish the roles and responsibilities of each of the parties. So I'll call this the Crayola version of the utilities and what we're putting in the ground. It's 6 different pipelines that we're installing. That's including City of Rathdrum's line. So a significant amount of infrastructure that will go in ahead of rebuilding of the road. And these are a couple photos, both looking east. The photo on the left is near the park there on the corner. I believe that's Karen Streeter Park. Looking east up the hill, you can see some of the patching that's been done, the discoloration in the asphalt. That's the patching, in some cases, patches within patches. The other photo on the right is near the utilities driveway. So with that, this is our transition point. I will hand it over to Jackson to talk about the construction phase and the bids.
Good evening, Council. We had to keep it interesting for you, so fresh face. So we opened bids for the project on March 24th. MDM Construction Group was our low bidder at just under $5 million. Engineer's estimate was 9.3, slightly under that, 9.3. The bid that came in from MDM has been determined to be the lowest responsive bidder. Their bid amount came in with the requested contingency that we're asking for of 10%. The total request we have for you tonight is $5,429,000, or $5,429,878.30. We did get 7 bidders on the project, and there was a handful of bidders that were fairly close, so we feel that it was a competitive bid environment. Construction management services on this project are more significant than they have been on previous projects. Large reasoning for that is that we cannot shut down this entire corridor to the city. To be able to complete our project, we had to go about this in phased approaches to allow for traffic to go back and forth during construction. We will have some limited closures of the McGuire and Chase intersections. So there can be some anticipated night work as well as some work outside of Monday and Friday to try and efficiently get those intersections done for the public. We also anticipate 2 construction seasons, and we will have full-time observation on site. So that's kind of some of the explanation for why services are more for this project than others. So during construction, that phased approach, you're going to have observation on both sides versus closing down the entire road to watch observation once. And we have some pretty comprehensive public outreach planned to help mitigate traffic impacts to the public during construction. The award itself, so the contract amendment for construction management services is the 1.2 million number. We are requesting a 10% contingency on top of that, retiring all unused contingency from the design contract. So the total ask for CMS tonight is $1,353,770. The total request for both the construction award and the CMS service amendment is $6,783,648.30.
How much unused contingency did we have from the design phase?
I would have to get you an exact number, but it is absolutely above 80,000
Close
or so.
to all of it?
Of the management reserve contingency, yes.
And then it was retired to where?
Back into the budget line item that
Okay.
it would have came from.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
During all of this, and per our MOU and conversations with Rathdrum, Rathdrum would be invoiced their proportionate share. Is an important point to note. So,
Do we know roughly how much that is?
yes. Yep. So overall project cost share. So these are approximate numbers because during design versus construction management, some of those numbers fluctuate slightly. But overall project cost is estimated to be approximately 7.9 million. Utilities should share about 56% of that. Our streets division shares about 28% of that, and Rathdrum shares about 16% of the overall thing, overall
And that's
project.
because of the total amount of wastewater that we process, only 16% of that is from Rathdrum?
No. So it was much more detailed. So prior to bidding, we went through the itemized, like what the contractor bids, every single item,
Okay.
and had an assigned amount towards Rathdrum that Rathdrum and us agreed to prior to bidding. So once bidding came out, those numbers are the same for them as they are for us. Hopefully that made sense.
I mean, sure.
That was, and those actions we took were per our MOU with them.
Okay.
Also included in that 7.9 million number is the EGID protection work that we will be reimbursing. The estimated cost of that is sub $200,000. They are still getting some finalized bid pricing, so that's why that isn't official yet.
We're going to give EIG, we're giving East Green Acres money?
Yep, so per our agreement with them, and this is what Andrew was mentioning.
Yeah.
The protection.
Yeah, so the agreement that we had with EGID
Yeah.
prior to the MOU for this project, and again, my understanding, it dictates that the entity that's coming into the road to do work, if they are disturbing the other entity's work, the entity coming into the road is responsible for the cost of that work. So we would be responsible for protecting EGID's work because we are coming into the road disturbing it.
Yep, nope, I totally understand that, which is to say that we're not going to take a pickaxe and put a hole in their pipe, right?
correct.
So why do we have to pay them $200,000? We're just not going to disturb their work. That seems like a reasonable agreement.
It will be impossible for us to not disturb their work as we go through construction, through the alignment. They are already within the road.
And so where our estimated damages to their work is $200,000?
No.
No?
I don't want to butcher this. Go ahead, Andrew.
Come on up,
I'm
Andrew.
so sorry.
Yeah, I probably could have explained that a little further. So on the protection side of things, typically when we are doing a construction project, the city of Post Falls, if we're doing a water lane somewhere, we are responsible to protect other entities' work. Most often, that's just included in the construction contract.
Seems reasonable, that part.
Yeah, so there would be probably a similar type of cost associated with that just gets folded in with the construction contract. So the contractor bidding the work also knows they are responsible to do the protection work. In this case, what we are doing is we're separating that out, and we're, per that agreement with East Green Acres, the city of Post Falls is responsible financially to protect their work. It's just the mechanism we're using. Instead of having the city's contractor, MDM Construction, do the protection, East Green Acres will hire a contractor to do the
Can you
protection.
describe what protection?
Yeah, thank
What,
you.
Oh,
what
sure.
physically are we doing?
Standing there.
So,
or- yeah.
Yeah, no.
Like,
Sorry.
Mafia, they're,
All right.
Okay, so the protection work, there are instances where we need to go over or under East Green Acres water line. There are also instances where we are too close to their water main and we need to maintain separation. So for drinking water and wastewater, there are guidance requirements. You have to have at least 10 feet of horizontal separation. So the protection work encompasses all of those requirements. So the benefit to this is East Green Acres will do this work ahead of our project.
I still need you to elucidate what the work is. So, like,
Okay.
in your example, the pipes have to be 10 feet apart. So there's actual physical work of moving the pipes those 10 feet apart because they are not presently.
Correct.
And so that's the work that East Green Acres is going to pay, and then we're going to reimburse them.
It is.
'Kay.
So there are locations where East Green Acres is moving their line completely out of a wastewater alignment, and there's a physical relocation that occurs. There are other instances where they're replacing the material of pipe. Certain older material standards of doing pipe installation have changed, so some of that still is in the project limits. So concrete pipe, for instance,
You
and
say
they will
protection,
replace
but
that.
it's like physical work, not
Correct.
Not preventive.
Yeah.
not preventive. Yeah.
And
Okay,
that
okay.
also, it was at a level that required design and engineering design, so that 200,000 is what we anticipate being the most.
Okay.
Likely, we will see that cost be less than 200,000, and that includes the engineering design, construction management support, and then the physical cost of moving water lines and protecting water lines.
Thanks for the additional.
I would assume, though, correct me if I'm wrong, that by granting them, I mean, we're paying them to do it, but it also is a bit of a protection from future liability. If we were to have our contractor come in, and even if it was done to spec and it had any kind of future deficiency, they could potentially say, hey, you didn't do this right. Whereas when it's them, it's like, well, this is your deal. Like, we paid you, it's over. So in that way,
That's a
it
good
is a
point.
bit of protection to the city.
It keeps them in the driver's seat for their infrastructure, and they're making those decisions. Since I'm here, if I could maybe just follow up on your comment earlier, you asked a question about the proportionate share and
Yeah.
force main
Yeah.
from City of Rathdrum.
Uh-huh.
Because just to clarify, that force main, City of Rathdrum owns the force main. So they are responsible to get their wastewater through their piping up to the reclamation facility. And then the proportionate share, as Jackson mentioned, is based on the actual length of pipe and all the valving and everything else that is associated with their line. So that 16% represents the construction contract plus the portion of oversight and design.
Okay.
I can guess where you were at.
I think I'm about wrapped up. Thank you for your question. Thank you, Andrew, for taking that and explaining a bit further. Yeah, so that does include the full amount for EGID. And we're about wrapped up here, but I thought it'd be good to touch base on what the construction will look like because it is such a large project in such a major area of town. So this has been broken out into 4 phases. Phases 3 and 4 we see as being the intersections work, and they will require full closures of the intersection. We have it in the agreement. Only one intersection can be closed at a time. Detour routes will be posted for that. And we anticipate that the contractor will construct phases 3 and 4 this year. Phases 1 and 2 are the north and south half of Seltice. Again, we're doing those in phased pairs, so one can happen, be finished up, and then we flip over to maintain one lane of travel in each direction. And we anticipate that to occur in 27. As for next steps, we anticipate construction this summer through summer to fall of next year. We'll have public outreach occurring throughout all phases of the project. road closures and detour routes will be published in advance, and all of these updates will be posted to the city's social media page and website.
There be any disruption during the winter shutdown? Like, is anything going to be closed and coned, or is it all going to be?
There's some flexibility that the contractor has depending on how they approach these phases, to where there may actually be a world where they can work through the winter. Weather is so fickle here in North Idaho. During that shutdown, if and when it occurs, all of that will be properly coned off, blocked off, marked off.
But no lane closures or anything over the, maybe just like trench plates and cones or something?
Depends on the phase that they're in. During the winter shutdown, there shouldn't be, no.
Well, 3 and 4 are just intersections, right?
Correct, yes, that's absolutely correct. So they're...
Next year, it's all going to happen during the summer season, or during the construction season.
Yes, I'd love to give you a perfect example of how I can see it happening. I could see phases 3 and 4 occurring throughout summer, normal construction season, and then January, there's a wild hair, February wild hair, the contractor wants to get going. And so during those months where they can get ahead on some work, getting ready for paving, the second batch plants open up, I can see them doing some quote-unquote winter work then. I don't see them working through the winter with big open pits or anything like that. During construction, though, whether winter or not, we will have proper safety in place.
If I could just add, so currently the contract is structured that there would be shutdown, all work removed. So there's milestones for each of those phases. So it's intended that with the season that we have coming up on us this year, they would be able to do half of the project work and then shut down completely and be off of the road, which is possible, and then next year come back and do the remaining 2 phases. So I guess to what Jackson was getting at is, if the weather is conducive to work continuing through the wintertime, that may be something that if there's an opportunity to get work completed with a weather window, that may be of a consideration.
Yeah, that's fine. My question is more about, we're not going to abandon this in a hot mess where people are, I know that a lot of us, especially those of us who live very close to 41 and Mullen, are tired of the orange cones for the last 4 years and being rerouted and all of that. And so now we're going to inflict that on another neighborhood. I just wanted to make sure that if they're not working, we're not going to leave it up there where there's a lane closed or detour or something like that, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And our intent is that if they are out there and the road is disturbed, they are working. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
No.
I think we already had those.
I would move to approve the Seltice Way Rehabilitation and Pipeline Project recommendation to award.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Plou,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Stigleader,
Aye.
Luca,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Mosby,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Council.
move to approve the Seltice Way Rehabilitation and Pipeline Project Construction Management Services Amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Stigleader,
Aye.
Luca,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Mosby,
Aye.
Plou.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Does anybody need a recess before we continue?
Just going to make that motion.
We'll recess for 5 minutes. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order and move on to new business. First up is solid waste temporary projects ordinance update.
Thank you, Council. Chris Gabbert, Deputy City Attorney. What's before you tonight is kind of a first quick look for ordinances. We bring them back to you twice. We kind of outline what we're going to do before we bring the actual ordinance back for adoption. Just a quick background on this one. This is a cleanup ordinance to our garbage services ordinance chapter. The background is the legislature back in last year passed a provision that eliminated temporary garbage services from being required to go through a franchise ordinance for the city. So it allows people to individually contract for a service provider for temporary services. So if you're doing like a home remodel or something else, you can hire somebody that is not our franchisee to do that. And so they codified that in the code at 5344, but allowed the local entity, the city, to define what temporary and project-specific limitations are. So they gave us that ability. So what's before you for consideration is recommended by Republic Services, our provider. It's two quick fixes. We've just identified what temporary service entails and said that it is therefore exempt from our franchise ordinance requirement. That's the bare minimum we need to do, and we'll achieve that. And then if it needs to be revised in a few years as to us regulating temporary garbage service or anything else, or becoming more regulatory in that manner, if there's an issue, we can always address it then. So that is the quick version of it. I was hoping finance would be here tonight because this is kind of Jason's deal, but here I am.
So there is no financial impact to this, correct?
No, it's just they manage the billing for that, so there is no financial impact.
What did we set as being temporary? Sorry.
90 days.
And you can only do that once in a calendar year? For those of council that have remodeled homes, does that seem reasonable to you? The only thing that caught me in what you were just saying is that Republic helped write this ordinance, and they do a fantastic job for the rest of the city, but it seems like they would be inherently...
So Republic brought it to our attention. Sorry, do you want to finish?
Yeah, just that, they wouldn't want people to not be using their services too much during the year. So does one 90-day instance seem reasonable to, redo a house if you were going to do that?
And before you get into the deliberation, let me just address how it came to us. They provided us with a couple ordinances across the state that have already adopted it. I took a look at those, like the city of Meridian was the one that took a comprehensive approach, basically regulating all sorts of temporary services and put in a new permitting structure and everything else that we thought was probably unnecessary and a little bit of overkill. So the 90 days is just our wag at it. For the one service. I think their concern was you're going to have certain people that are either repeat offenders and are going to continue to use it as a way of avoiding using the city's provider, and or it gets more difficult to enforce if you have anything but kind of a bright line rule.
Because this is by property, right? Not by person.
Correct.
Right.
I believe so. If I could look at the ordinance again.
And I can only answer anecdotally. I've done a couple of projects, and the dumpsters really only needed for the demolition phase.
Okay.
And I haven't needed one for more than a week yet.
That seems, it was just I don't have any expertise.
Good question.
So.
Yeah, 90 days would be, there might be a commercial application that would run into that, but I can't imagine a residential one that would.
Just the one time would be enough. Yeah. Okay.
And for our enforcement mechanism, our contemplation is just to have it on the permitting stage, to have them check a box identifying if they're going to use it as a temporary service, and then that at least allows us to track it a little bit, so to see where it goes.
So if I understand it summarized, it used to be that they had to use the franchise provider, and now with the state law passage, they will not have to, or they cannot be forced to use the franchise provider for temporary services.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the legislative code change just says something to the effect of, despite any city contract or franchise, any person may contract with a waste collection provider of their choosing for solid waste collection containers that are temporary and project specific as defined by city ordinance. So,
but it used to be that they could have been forced to use the franchise provider prior to that law.
And that's why the amendment to our code is necessary, just to carve out that exception and make sure that it's clear.
My only concern is that if there is a legitimate need for 2 temporary projects in a year, or a legitimate need that's going to go 120 days instead of 90, that this is a little bit restrictive. It would be maybe nice to write in something that said, or by its nature is, or a permitting process or something where a variance where somebody could say, hey, this project's going to take me all summer, but we're cleaning up this giant farm that was full of tires and trash and stuff.
So then they would just have to pay Republic and pay their other service provider, right? Like that's what they would be forced to do with this ordinance? Like they'd have to pay Republic like 60, how much do I pay Republic? $16 a month? Or I don't know.
Well, I envision this primarily being for dumpsters, right? Somebody's got to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the intent of it, but you're always going to have people that are abusing it or trying to get around the process. Right now, our code requires, or it's unlawful for somebody to engage in the business of collecting garbage unless they are franchised by the city. So, and that's a standard feature in Idaho. It's not unusual to have a municipal franchise for that. So this accepts out the temporary use. We just have to define what that looks like.
I think to answer to your question, so the regular garbage collection, the green cans for residential or whatever, would still be handled by Republic on a weekly basis, even while the temporary thing is going on. Is that correct?
Yes. I would assume so, unless it's not intended for normal household waste, but because the legislation is kind of broad, we're just trying to carve out that exception so we don't get sideways with it.
Oh, I thought this meant that you could forego Republic for 90 days and have your own one.
I don't know.
I think you probably could if you wanted to push it. And again, they're bringing it to our attention to just get ahead of it.
Well, I'm just saying then
Like
if
if you buy a house to flip or something like that, you don't need residential garbage service when you have a dumpster sitting out there.
Yeah, but you can only have it for 90 days one time a year. But then if you needed the dumpster for more time during the year, you would just have to pay Republic and pay the dumpster.
Or get a different dumpster.
Or contract with Republic directly.
Yeah, you'd have to go
Okay,
through
got it.
Republic's
Yeah.
dumpster system.
Yeah.
And again, this,
Trash talk from this council.
In the interest of time, would there be any objection to having some sort of to empowering staff to write something in there for either a permitting process or a way that they could get a variance if their project's going to be longer, or they need to do multiple projects?
I think as long as it's simple, I don't want to create a whole new permitting process that somebody's going to have to follow and develop and everything else. But if it's something really vague that, on the permission of the city administrator or something simple that doesn't require an extra process.
Something very simple, but it's just not just, it's 90 days or else, and it's once per year or else.
I think we're, to address your point, Republic had originally suggested we follow Meridian and institute a new permitting process and everything else, and then I kind of took a look at the collection costs and whether or not that would really be useful or not to create a whole another permit scheme, adopt fees, create this whole structure just to deal with what may be a small issue. So they had suggested we do something more adept, but this was after we'd already got this on the agenda. So that's where I'm seeking direction from you folks. If you want to go through a more complicated process, we can always bring it back at another future date as well, just to address it at that point.
Or alternatively too, we could pass it as is, and because right now it might be a solution in search of a problem. So if something does arise where somebody needs something longer, then we can always amend it then.
That would be my preference. If we have any sort of process, it has to be fair and evenly applicable, and then we've got to create standards for it, and there's a lot of work in that. So if we can just get this up and then see if anybody has an issue with it, we can always revisit it.
And if it's the council's direction, maybe we can extend it to 120 days and, 4 months. And if you can't get it done in 4 months with a temporary project, it starts to not look like a temporary project, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Have you been to my house? Is that what-
Well,
A theme you may be noticing about me with these policies is I like flexibility. Like, I don't
I do
like
too.
to pigeonhole people. I want them to be able to do their project without our stupid laws getting in their way, right? So if you're trying to flip a house, you get to the 90th day and you're like, I need 4 more days on this stupid dumpster. No, now I have to go contract with Republic. I can't just call the city and say, hey, I need 4 more days. Is that all right? If we could just put that flexibility in, then we don't have to revisit it ever again. Like, I don't think any of us care,
But
right?
with the standards, it makes it a clear indication as to how to enforce it as well, because if it starts to get too arbitrary or anything else, then it's like, well, does this really apply? How do we enforce these standards?
The city may extend this if by the very nature of the project, it is clear that it, whatever. Like, there's language, I think, that would allow us the flexibility without having to revisit this later or get a complaint from a citizen that said, I had to rent another $700 dumpster because I needed 4 more days on this project.
Who determines the reasonable amount of time for a particular project? Because on the flip side, you could also have neighbors that say, I have a neighbor that's had a, movable dumpster in his front yard and he keeps getting re-permitted and it's been 2 years. To some people, 2 years is a temporary project if he's doing it himself. So I do think it opens up kind of a Pandora's box of how we define all of these different things. And generally speaking, I'm in agreement with you, but with any type of liberty, there's also potential for abuse. So I think having the kind of criteria is necessary as well.
Ultimately, too, I think this is, no matter what, is better than the current state, because the current state is you got to contract with the public no matter what, and dumpsters are typically rented by the day or by the week. So, if you get to 90 days and you're still not quite done, and we got to be super hardcore about it, which I don't think we probably do, that's an enforcement thing, then it's pretty simple. You just rent a dumpster from Republic for a week and finish out your project if you need 4 more days. Because you'd have to renew the other dumpster for a week anyway, and they don't usually charge you to drop them off and pick them up. It's just a daily or weekly.
Yeah, I moved into a house that I had to have a dumpster 3 times in order to get rid of all the junk out of this residential lot. That would be, that if that was here, that would mean that I would have to contract with Republic. That would create a monopoly for them.
Well, that's a good question, though. So is this 90 days total for the year?
No, you can only do it once.
Consecutive?
Yes. That was the recommendation.
Okay, so whether you need, so if you contract a dumpster with somebody besides Republic for a week, and then 6 months later you want to contract a dumpster for another week, you can't do that?
Not the way it's currently written.
I see your point on that, Mark.
It says 90 days or less in duration.
Well, it's the one-time only thing that would run into Mark's
I see what you mean.
example.
Yeah.
There's also, I think there's going to be people that might want to create a business and purchase the infrastructure to have roll-off dumpsters and all of that based on the fact that now they can compete. Well, this is limiting their business. So I think there just needs to be a standard about what is a temporary project, and is there flexibility for the city to say, yes, that's temporary, and no, that's not, if it's outside. I mean, I understand that Republic recommended, but they stand to gain from the recommendation to the exclusion of other businesses.
How about we table this and work on some drafts that meet more of what we're looking to get?
And again, we're not passing anything tonight, Council. This is just like I said, a first wag at this, just to take direction, let you know that this is coming back in some form or other. And if it is to work more flexibility in this, or not have a bright line 90-day rule, or 90 days total in a year, you get 90 days. I don't care if you contract 90 times or 180 times for half a day. I don't know.
Email some suggestions about what they'd like to see in it, and then we just,
alternatively, you could flip it, right, and say a temporary project is 30 days or less, and the provision is limited to 3 times per year, right? Because then you're getting to the 90 days and a three limit. So we can make adjustments, we can make edits. We just need direction.
Yeah, or maybe even not more than 90 days total, and not more than
Yeah, or could we just do the reasonable man language in there, or like with land use, we say you can get a special use permit or whatever. Yeah, something that allows somebody to review it and go, clearly this is temporary. You did the roof in January, or in June, and now you want to take the old tires out in August.
And I think that works in the land use context. I'm sorry, Councilman. And if we were to create the regulatory scheme, that would be the perfect place for that reasonableness or a continuation of your permit or anything else. So if we're going to go down that route, then we can certainly build something into that if we're going to have them get a permit for a temporary thing, temporary use. That would be the broader structure. Again, I was bringing it to you guys as a narrow issue, but it can be broader.
My concern with that, again, is now you have to create a whole new process for permitting or whatever else, like a special use permit. There's a whole lot of words in city code about that.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't have to go that route. I just, if you can wave the legal magic wand over this and make it the least hassle for the most amount of people and bring it to us next.
Well, that's what the legislature did. Now we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think to Chris's point, anytime you build in discretion, you build in
unenforceability.
Unenforceability and some process to process that discretion. Who's it going to be? What department's going to? How is it going to be processed? And so anytime you have those sort of discretionary calls, you are effectively adding process.
Yeah.
I move to direct staff to bring back the solid waste temporary projects ordinance, and that it include some additional flexibility that does not require a new permitting mechanism.
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Stigleiter.
Aye.
Luca.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Mosby.
Aye.
Plu.
Aye.
Ziegler.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is Community Garden MOU with Post Falls Food Bank.
Oh boy.
I almost just made the motion.
Yeah. It's totally fine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Ammerman, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here tonight seeking approval to enter into an MOU with the Post Falls Food Bank to utilize our community garden to provide food for those in our community that are food burdened. Pretty straightforward. Historically, a member of our community did that. His name was Mark Jones. He has passed. So he worked with youth from the high school to do the same thing. Now we're just looking for a replacement, and Post Falls Food Bank has some willing and able volunteers to fill this void, and I think it's a great thing for the community, and I'd love to just continue that with them. So any questions? Pretty straightforward, I believe.
I like it. I would move to approve the community garden MOU with Post Falls Food Bank.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
One question.
Jack.
What sort of oversight or supervision or involvement or any kind of connection is the Parks Department going to have once we approve this?
I mean, so in the MOU, it talks about, maintaining the area, keeping it weed free, doing the needed maintenance. So we'll just have a partnership with them, and our oversight is, hey, if they're not fulfilling that, we could, I think it says in there, we could abandon the MOU or whatever, give them 60 days notice or something. So that's an option, is just if they're not fulfilling their end of their requirement, we could discontinue the MOU.
But, is the idea to actually observe, or is it just, here's the memorandum of understanding, do whatever you're going to do? Are we actually going to pay attention to it, or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Just like the other plots that are rented. So we'll have oversight.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
That was it.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Love to see if we have other fallow land that could be used for that purpose, if we could increase that program.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Luca.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Mosby.
Aye.
Plu.
Aye.
Stigler.
Aye. Oh, wait, was that me or you? Sorry. That was me. Yeah, okay.
Ziegler.
Aye.
Okay.
I heard Stigler. Keep you guys on your toes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is citizens' issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council regarding city-related issues that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Seeing none.
Scared them all away.
Mayor and council comments. Nothing from me tonight. Anyone here want to prolong the meeting? All right. On to executive session. We do need one tonight.
move to enter an executive session pursuant to Idaho Codes 74-206A, 74-206B, and 74-206D. Further, that no action will be taken during the session, and the session will last approximately 45 minutes.
Second?
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Mosby,
Aye.
Blue,
Aye.
Stigleader,
Aye.
Luca,
Aye.
Ziegler.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We're enter executive. All right, we'll return from executive session, and absent any objection, we will adjourn. Thank you.
I object.